data, but basically the idea is that we're in a cycle, and we've been through this cycle before. It is different this time. So yeah, I want to take a brief look back from 2005 to 2012. Like 2005 was a year where there was unbelievable construction, like oversupply. 2005, 2006 were, I mean, if you think about like developments like the South Waterfront or like Pronghorn down in Bend, like those developments are still not complete due to the oversupply. And so that's just an interesting element. Values dropped massively in 2008, 7 and 8. But yeah, anyway, my presentation is going to be based on volume. So all the brokers in the room, like this is really what matters a lot. And it also kind of like matters like how the real estate market feels when mortgage brokers and real estate agents aren't doing deals because there's significantly less volume. There's just not as much juice like in the market. Like no one's excited. And so like the activity is extremely important. So if you kind of look through these years, 2005, crazy year, 2006, really big. 2007, so I didn't get 2007 in there, but I believe it was 3,500 sales. And then huge drop in 08, even bigger in 09. So the interesting piece right here is if you look at volume kind of picking up in 2010, 2011, 2012, values are still going down. So that's an interesting piece of the last cycle, is that the purchase prices went down as volume picked up. And so there's something to learn there this time around about the emotion of selling a property and having to go through and watch a huge run up, like peak prices, and then seeing them, come down, and then finally people starting to sell. That like it's an interesting nugget to pick out, and like you get a lot of property owners who are fed up with the operations. And I mean, right now operating an investment property is extremely difficult. There were a lot of accidental landlords in 2005, during this cycle, especially with the drop in values. And so if we take a peek at this time around, you'll see a similar drop in volume, but average prices do not drop. And I believe there's a couple factors here why that is. First of all, inflation. So that I believe there's some built-in inflation. So yes, values haven't dropped that much, but things cost more. The dollar is worth less. So there's probably about 10% of value that is just gone because we live in an inflated environment. Secondly, there are a lot of property owners who have locked really low interest rates from 30-year mortgages from 2018 to the middle of 2022. And so the thing is, though, is that now that volume is coming back a little bit, you can kind of see prices ticking down. And the time period that we are in right now, like this is the opportunity to buy property. And like especially, like people want to sell, like people want to move and shake. Like now is the time. But there's one caveat to that, and it is you need to know who you're buying from. Like if from an investment perspective, you want to be buying from the seller who is ready to be done with their property. The one who's tired of operating it, the one who is basically, just ready to move on. Maybe they're done with Portland, Oregon. They think Portland is going down the gutter. Like, that's a great buyer or a great seller to buy from. And so, yeah. So this is April data. I'm gonna be interested to see what Danny got me. Okay, so now we've got mortgage rates, and yeah. So here is a interesting nugget about mortgage rates. So mortgage rates were going down during this period from 2005 to 2012. So I honestly think that accelerated the run up. And like 2013, 14, 15 were really big years. We're talking like a ton of sales activity, and prices rebounded pretty quickly. We are not going to see that this cycle. I don't think that we're going to get lower interest rates. You know, a lot of people say, 6-7% is normal. So that's just something to consider. Like, investment properties need to make sense at the interest rates right now, which, and so like that's the thing to negotiate is when you're buying a deal, you cannot predicate the deal as that we need eventually we'll get a lower interest rate. It's not buy the house, not the interest rate.
Take the rate.
Yeah, I mean, the rate might be much larger, it's not guaranteed. So okay, and then inflation. So inflation during the period of the last cycle, inflation stayed very low. This cycle, we had some huge inflation in 2021. And I honestly believe that inflation is understated. And 2025 and 2026 is estimated. So that is the recession that we're all seeing. Like, when you go to the grocery store and you earn your same income, but everything costs 25-30% more, that's our recession. It's a different recession. So yeah. All right. This is annual data. Basically, it basically says the same thing as the April data. 2020, 2021, we're at about 60% of activity from yeah. And then I wanted to quickly present a deal. So a similar deal that AJ and I purchased in 2019, and I would say that it's like very similar to deals that are available in this marketplace, and like the type of deals to look for. And so this is an 8-unit apartment complex that we ended up buying in 2019. It had 4 vacant units. Basically, we had homeless people living under the and this was in a flood zone too. So if you under the house, under the fourplex, there's a slope and it's on pilings, and there were curtains where there were people living under, and so like that. And basically, there were people living under the property, but there was there were only 4 units rented out of the 8, and so that didn't make any sense to me. And I knew that there were some operational opportunities on this one. And it was also being managed by one of our competitors, Sleep Sound Property Management, and so I was very excited to get property from them. This is the, I guess the number one core value of Uptown is to add value and to find opportunities to add value. And so, we saw that property is like, like this is underperforming. Let's get in there and go for it. And so we negotiated a good price, and then we decided, we were going to do a little bit of construction and a little bit of property management improvement. And so we bought it for $1.2 million. We put about $400K into it, and then I think after about 6 months, in like a pretty heavy value add, we refinanced it. And I guess one of the things is that I want to talk about the seller of that property. The seller of that property did not care. They did not care about that property. It was worth $1.2 million to them, which was far more than what they paid for it. And the income just didn't quite matter to them. And so, they just wanted to get rid of it, and we were able to negotiate some concessions. And that is, when you're looking at buying a property, figuring out the seller's motivation is extremely important. Figuring out why they're selling the property, anything else that you can figure out about the seller, about their situation, a lot of times we find ourselves buying properties from estates, and they're looking for certainty. They want to know exactly how much money they're going to net, immediately. And so, giving them a cash number and, saying that you're not going to take any repairs out of the inspection period, that is what they want. And so they'll accept the low price. And so learning as much as you can about the seller's situation is extremely important. And, that helped us on this deal. Just go to the rent roll here. So, so we, I believe the units were rented out at $12.95. And essentially, within about, probably spending about $10,000 or $12,000 a unit, we were able to get them up to $14.95. And then today they are renting at, actually this is kind of like what we were looking at. Some very interesting setups. And then now they rent out at, we got up to $18.95. We did have some drops in rents, but averaging about $1,700. And we got a couple nice photos. Some of them had nice cabinets. I think we put quartz in a couple of them. Some tile countertops. But that is a deal that I believe that you can find right now, and that the deal that we actually signed with Catherine on Friday at the golf course is a similar deal. We're getting a property that basically has 5 vacant units, very, very rough. We're in the process of remodeling it right now, and that's an 8-plex that we got into contract for $1.1 million. We have another 10-plex that we're in contract for $1.4 million, and those deals are out there, and you just have to know who the seller is, and that's your opportunity. So, any questions?
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
How are you sourcing your deals right now?
I've got a couple multifamily brokers that I'm working with. The 10 unit we found on the RMLS.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, we're buyers, so love good deals.
Chris, how many distressed properties? I mean, there's, everyone wants to look and get the best deal possible, right? And right now, it seems like there's, depending on what part of town you go to, right? All over the Tri-County, there are distressed properties. You've got squatters in some. I mean, we had one of my clients that, Premier Property Group, found something that had bottles of wine in a cellar that were like homemade wine that they sold the house as is.
Prison wine.
Yeah, prison wine. And ended up making a really good profit on it, but had to go in and clean out all of this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, are you seeing a lot of that right now with distressed properties that are ultimately going to be maybe a tear down? And
I mean, honestly, not really.
Not too
I'm
much.
not seeing a lot of it. Like, and that I want to say that that's kind of the, as activity picks up, there will be like, prices are going to keep going down a tiny bit, and so those properties, those property owners who've been hanging on, waiting for activity to pick up, will eventually sell their distressed property.
Yeah.
At least that's, I don't know. I think that we've got, 18 months, 24 months of opportunity to buy good deals. That's kind of like.
There's one in particular, if anyone lives over on the west side, you guys know where the Aloha Costco is by 19? We're from Costco to this brand new unit that they put up a couple of years ago. I don't know if they're condos or apartments, but there's one home that sits right in the middle on, I don't know. People are shaking their head going, yeah, I know that one. And it just sits there. And I just think, my God, you could put up another, I don't know what the zoning is on it. I'm sure they could put up another apartment complex, but it's just ultimately a teardown. And I see stuff like that as what you are looking for, opportunity, right?
Well, I'm not looking for land developments.
No.
Not with the way that building costs are right now. So, those ones that are eyesores where the land has a lot of value, those are probably going to keep sitting for a while. Yep.
You
James.
mentioned syndication. I want to know what that means.
Syndication is putting a group of investors together to buy a property. So my brother and I sponsor deals, so we come up with real estate deals similar to the one we just signed, the 8-unit. That's syndication, and then the 10-unit. So like we raise money and offer basically a return, so a preferred return, and then we're shooting for essentially a compounded annual return. But essentially, there's
What percent do you think?
so the 2 deals that we have right now are about 18% compounded annual return is what we project, and I believe I'm underwriting them relatively conservatively. I'm not putting in very large rent increases. I think we're averaging 2.5% rent increases over the next 5 years, and so.
So what happens at the end of 5 years?
Well, a lot of the deals that we bought in 2020 and 2021, this is not the time to sell them, and so we're going to continue to operate those. Like we shoot for a 3 to 5 year sell window, but if the market does what it does, or does what it did in 2022, then essentially we're going to wait for the right time to sell and for activity to pick up. And with the way that operating expenses have gone up and rents have either stayed flat or gone down, it's pretty brutal on property values. But I think it's an incredible time to buy, and I think that there are great opportunities out there. Ella.
Can you speak to, because you guys are sort of vertically integrated in the sense that don't you have your own construction arm and various other arms? I've heard AJ speak on very interesting businesses you guys have. But if you're just like a lay person trying to get into a fixer building like that, like what should you plan to budget, and what's like some low hanging fruit type improvements that you can make to start to get the higher end rents on like a worn down property?
I mean, garbage clean out.
Okay.
Yeah, garbage clean. I mean, the sweat equity. Like,
Yeah.
my dad, he did seller financing. He would buy property seller financing, and then he would arbitrage that, sell property seller financing. And whenever someone would walk on one of the contracts that he negotiated with as seller financing, the houses would be trashed, and we would go in as a family, clean them out, and like my mom would go in first and make sure that there's not anything terrible in there, and then we get in there with the garbage bags, and I mean, I'm literally not. I'm not kidding.
Never let mom in first.
Yeah.
She was, she
Full hazmat suit.
saw a lot.
That's for sure.
Jay.
You alluded to interest rates, but you're also talking about the rents gonna be.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The interest rates. that you
Interest
talked about
rates,
earlier,
yeah.
With the rent prices, but also the developments and then the vacant units, what do you anticipate interest rates doing in the next 3 years?
I mean, you should talk to the man standing right next to you, Mr. Mike Mayer from Advantage Mortgage. He's got his crystal ball.
3 years.
That's another class.
That's a tough thing to predict.
I would say that it's not worth predicting. And the one thing that AJ and I have always done is we've always bought properties every year. And, we have benefited from taking that risk. And I would say building up the daily activities, the processes of being able to buy property every year is where you can really grow. And worrying about what the market is going to do is probably gonna slow you down. You're gonna spin your wheels. But if you put in the work, figure out how you can, do more every year, that's how you can grow.
So along the lines of the interest rate uncertainty,
Yeah.
maybe flat rents,
Yep.
past years.
Yep.
I'm not sure if they're going to start growing going forward. Are you starting to see any creativity going into these deals, such as seller financing, like we were just talking about, or anything else outside the norm?
Well, let me just share with you guys what happened on the deal that I signed on Friday
At the golf course.
at the golf course. Well,
what did you shoot that day?
it didn't close. I shot even par actually. I had
He's
4
good.
birdies and an eagle. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Damn.
A lot of bogeys. That deal did not close, and Catherine was mad at me. But basically, we're going to close that deal in 2 months. We had some differences of opinion with the seller and had to call the attorneys, and essentially I negotiated 2 more months. We were going to have to acquire that deal with a hard money loan, and so it was going to be expensive for us. So we took possession of the property. We were started on our construction on our value add project. We're going to close on it in 2 months, and so essentially we're saving about $20,000 in interest. And I mean, we're just ahead of the game when it comes to refinancing. We'll probably use Chase or maybe an On Point to refinance that property. So yes, there's definitely an opportunity to get more creative. You get a lot of sellers who want a 1031 exchange, and that really sticks a stick in your spokes when it comes to getting creative. So, James?
What do you pay in interest for hard money loans these days?
10%.
10?
10%.
Where are you finding 10?
Merchant's Mortgage.
Plus points.
1 point.
All good?
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.